Welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast, brought to you by TournamentPokerEdge.com, the only podcast dedicated exclusively to poker tournament strategy. Now here's your host, Clayton Fletcher.
Hello once again, everybody, and welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast, sponsored by Americas Cardroom, where this month we are celebrating International Women's History Month, International Women's Day, something having to do with women. And I want to let everyone out there who happens to be female know that you should get on our Discord using the link in the description of this podcast, because we have some special giveaways coming up for our female members, courtesy of America's Cardroom. My name is Clayton Fletcher, and I am in New York City, and I am joined this week by a veritable TPE legend. I mean, he is one of the first ever members of Tournament Poker Edge from back in the early days. He was once known as the homeless poker player, and he's quite a success story. He now has a World Series of Poker bracelet, a World Series of Poker circuit ring, and he's even the co-host of the Thinking Poker podcast with the person that I admire most in the poker world, Andrew Brokus. So please welcome back to the show, Mr. Carlos Welch. Carlos, how have you been?
I'm doing great, Clayton. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, and I'm happy to be back on the show.
Yeah, it's been a while. Now, the last time we talked, you were getting ready to go to Vegas for the World Series of Poker. I think it's been about a year since we spoke last, which is just criminal in my opinion, but I know how busy you are. You were talking about a hack that you had for us, where if you stayed in a really bad, like 1-star hotel for a month, you were going to get diamond status at Caesars. Are you doing that again this year?
Yeah, I only needed to do it once, so I did it. I think this was like 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half. Did some time in Barstow at the Super 8.
You make it sound like you went to jail. You did your time.
It felt like that some days. But
yeah.
It took me 24 days. And once I did that, I got Wyndham Diamond, which I was able to convert over to Caesars Diamond. And then ever since then, I've been playing online WSOP events all year. And then also the stuff during the summer. And that gives me enough players points to kind of keep my diamond card year after year, so I don't have to go back to the pen.
Wow, so to get that many points online, you must be really playing quite a lot of volume on the website.
I play all the circuit events that they run, and they've gotten it now to where they run a circuit series pretty much every month. So I'm thinking somewhere between like 10 and 15 events every month, and they range anywhere from like $200 up to like $1,000, at least the ones I would play, and also satellites. So probably getting like 20 buy-ins a month. So not as crazy as the people who actually grind the games between the series, but still more than most people play on WSP.com, because they generally only play on it when they're here during the summer.
Right, so there's tip number one, guys. If you haven't done so yet, make sure that your card is linked. Your player's card needs to be linked to your WSOP.com account so you can collect those valuable points and not have to pay resort fees at Caesars properties, which is why you did it in the first place, right?
Yes, and now that you say that, it reminds me that I'm also getting points for staying in these rooms, even if the rooms are comped. So for someone who stays in as many rooms as I do, that also helps with the points. But
well, there you go.
Last year I had more than enough, so I imagine I could probably get it done just playing the events.
Fantastic. So you've been playing on ACR lately. You know, we are very proudly sponsored by America's Cardroom, and I saw you on the Freeroll. Why don't you tell people what happened in the TPE Freeroll last Sunday?
Yeah, so let's go back to the Sunday before that. The Sunday before that, Derek sent me a message and said, hey, we're having this TPE Freeroll. Did you want to play in it? I was like, sure. And he told me about it, and I opened up the software, and I had trouble finding it. And I think it took me about 5 minutes. And then but that's all it took. At 5 minutes after after it started, it was already full. So I couldn't get in that week. And then this week he said, okay, I'm going to give you the password ahead of time so that you can go ahead and register before I open it up to everybody else. So I did that this time. After him, I was the second person to register the thing, and somehow I was able to win it.
Wow, see that? Number one, you got VIP status. I mean, Derek doesn't even give me the password early. That's incredible. You get the password before anybody. But, that just shows what you mean to Tournament Poker Edge, and you really are a success story. I mean, I remember you in your early days. You actually introduced me to Derek, right? So, I mean, you go all the way back to the beginning with these guys. And, I remember in the early days when you were extremely nitty. You played a very, very conservative style. I guess I would describe you as scared money back in those days. And then you built your bankroll up, and your money became less and less scared as you had more and more of it, which is how that goes.
Exactly.
And, what a ride it's been for you. And now you are a fierce competitor. You bested 300 players in our free roll. And, we get statistics on these free rolls, and you might think that the people that play in a free roll are mostly players who you might normally find in a free roll, but that free roll is not exactly easy. I mean, we got some killers in there. We see what else they play, and some of these guys are fairly high stakes. I think they just want the bragging rights of winning the free roll.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised at the quality of the competition when we got to that final table. Like, there were definitely some people putting me in tough spots and doing a good job of fighting back.
Yeah, now we're doing that free roll again this Sunday. It's 5 p.m. Eastern time here in the States. So if you don't have an ACR account yet, get one. Use the promo code TPE, and you can get a first-time deposit bonus of 100% up to $2,000. I don't know if you'll be playing this Sunday, Carlos, but I will be there. And, we only limit it to the first 300 players, which is why Carlos said it only took 5 minutes for it to fill up. Once that password is officially dropped, it fills up almost immediately. So, yeah, you do have to have your finger on the trigger. That's why we tell everybody to stay in the Discord. We try to switch it up, try to, outsmart the Russian bots that are infiltrating. But you know what? Yeah. They're allowed to play too. If you find the password, you can play. That's it.
Yeah, I think some of the tougher players at that final table were from Russia.
Yeah.
I think we had Russia, Ukraine, and also Belarus. So,
wow,
right in the area of the world.
Yeah, and they're very aggressive players, and they're tough. And so we just appreciate you taking it down for TPE and for the USA.
Yeah, I'll do what I can.
So how are you going to spend the $201? That's what I want to know.
That's a good question. You know what I think? I think what I'm going to do is use that money to pay myself to do a free video for TPE reviewing this thing. That's something I mentioned to Derek. I don't know if he remembers it because he was a couple of whiskeys deep at the time we talked about it.
What else is new?
But what I told him was I will review this and give it to TPE free of charge, just as a way of giving back for everything that the community and the guys at TPE have done for me. Like, I wouldn't be where I am if not for them. So this is kind of a great way to give back. And also, it's kind of like a shining example of the things they taught me. If, like, one of the earliest TPE members can come out of the woodworks and win the TPE free roll, that's, like, great advertisement for the site.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we were all very excited to see you there at the final table. And then just, I think it's the first time you ever played the free roll and you won it. Now, I said something untrue in the chat on twitch.tv/killingbird. I said that I've won it before myself and that I know how you feel or something to that effect. But I'm mistaken. I won the Killingbird home game, which is different from the TPE free roll. I think the TPE free roll is actually a bit more prestigious, and I know it's more money.
Yeah. Probably a bigger field. I think a bigger field as well.
Yeah. I mean, Derek, he's been doing well. I mean, with the partnership with ACR, his Twitch has livened up a lot. We get, maybe 100, 150 players for the home game. But yeah, nothing like the 300, and not quite as many from Russia, Ukraine, Lithuania, and surrounding areas. So you said before you would not be where you are without Tournament Poker Edge, and that's amazing, Carlos. That's really nice. Where are you?
Currently, I'm in a room in Laughlin that I'm getting with my comped points and no resort fee.
Nice, with your diamond card.
Exactly.
So are you basically staying in Laughlin for a while? Are you still kind of doing the nomad thing, that hotel life?
Yeah, so basically I'm bouncing between Laughlin and also the Rio. I spend a lot of time at the Rio, but I'm spending a little bit more time down in Laughlin this month because, as you may know, March just started, and in March there's a little thing called March Madness that comes to Vegas, and I really like the Rio more so than most people, but I don't like it enough to pay $280 for a room.
Right, March Madness. It's not a cheap time to be in in Las Vegas. Let's just say it's not Nickcast approved. And speaking of Nickcast, you are now the co-host. You have replaced the great Nate Mavis. Big shoes to fill over at the Thinking Poker podcast. What's it been like filling Nate's shoes and working alongside my favorite poker player, Andrew Brokus?
It's been great, man. It's been so awesome because we actually started Thinking Poker Daily before Nate retired from the podcast. So I was already spending more time talking to the two of those guys than I had in the past, like basically every week. And now that Nate's stepped aside, now Andrew and I spend more time making Thinking Poker Daily. And then also I'm like the co-host of the regular podcast. So now I'm just like getting hours and hours in every month talking to Andrew. So like, yeah, this has like been like the biggest change for me over the past year or so.
Yeah, I mean, he is just a brilliant poker mind. He is just a master of. I think he's got the ideas behind game theory as it relates to No Limit Hold'em down probably as well as anyone on earth. But he's also an amazing teacher, and the way he explains things for somebody who's even as dumb as I am to figure them out is pretty awesome, because these are not easy concepts to grasp.
Yeah, he's a great teacher. He's a great guy, and I just love talking to him as much as possible. But on top of that, I get access to some of the guests that before I was just listening to the podcast, but having an opportunity to talk with some of these people. Like one of the first guests we interviewed was your buddy, Joe Stapleton. So to get an opportunity to have an hour-long conversation with him is not something that I would have had I not been co-host of the podcast.
Yeah, I listened to that episode. You guys did a great job with him. It's hard sometimes to keep Stapes on track, and you guys did a good job with that. That's my boy. He's got ADD, though. We know that for sure.
Right.
Yeah. All right, so I'm really happy for you and proud of you. I'm excited, that things are going so well for you. I'm sorry we didn't get to play together in the Freeroll last week, but maybe we can get you to come back and play with us again, defend your title, as it were. I know you have some hands that you brought. I don't know if they're from that Freeroll or whatever, but before we get to them, I wanted to check with you on your plans for the summer. Do you expect to be in Vegas for the World Series this year?
Yes. Whenever I get that question, I tell people I never left. And I'm never going to leave. So when everybody else leaves Vegas at the end of the summer, I still live in the home of the WSOP, at least the old home. But when the summer starts, I will be moving over to the new home over at the Horseshoe. But I'm here all year round.
That's great. That is so great. And have you looked at the schedule? Is there anything you're really excited about on the schedule?
The thing I'm really excited about, two things I will say. One is I laugh because the thing I'm always excited about every year is the mega satellites, and they have a bit of a change this year because they no longer pay out in lammers, so they basically give you electronic tournament buy-in chips. So with that being the case, I can no longer sell the Lammers. So I'm going to be playing a lot of tournaments that I'm not super excited about. But I'm excited about the opportunity to win my way into those tournaments. So I will be doing that. But the one tournament that I'm most excited about is one that I've already won my way into, and that is the Tournament of Champions that I was able to secure a seat for by winning the circuit ring back in September.
And that's a $1 million free roll, right? And it's early this time, right?
Yes, $1 million free roll, and I believe it's like the 29th of May. So it's going to be like one of the very first events.
Wow. Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, I hope that you can make it over to the Mirage and come see me. I'm going to be opening for Jim Jeffries at the Mirage that first weekend, Carlos, June 2nd and 3rd, a 10 p.m. show. So kind of depending on what you're playing, if you bust out early enough or whatever, I hope you can come over. It's going to be a really ridiculous night of comedy for sure.
Definitely. I've attended one comedy event there with Alex Fitzgerald a couple of years ago, and he took me to see Ron White. Now, I didn't know much about Ron White, but I will just say it was an experience.
Ron White, obviously one of the blue collar comedy tour guys, a Southern gentleman, much like yourself. But I don't know I don't know if that's where the similarities end or not.
I think so. Speaking of whiskey, yeah. Well, I think maybe Scotch is his thing. I don't know, but he was drinking something up there.
Yeah, he always does. Ron White. Well, this show will be a lot different from that, so I hope we can get you to come back and check it out. I got some stuff for you, Carlos. Don't worry.
Cool.
All right, so let's do some hands. What do you got for us? Are these hands going to be from that free roll? Is this a victory lap, or are you going to save those for the video you're making for us?
A little bit of both. All these hands, besides one, are from the free roll. And to prepare for the episode, I made sure to catch up on like the last couple of episodes of the Tournament Poker Edge podcast. And one thing I found is that your new favorite hand is Ace Jack.
I know. I feel like I did Ace Jack like 7 times last week.
And so I thought, what other hand would be perfect to bring to Clayton is to talk about Ace Jack, because I had 2 really good, interesting Ace Jack hands from the free roll, and also have an Ace Jack hand that I played against Negreanu back in, I think it was 2021 in one of the circuit ring events that has kind of resurfaced lately. But I was like, I just ran across that one today, and I was like, you know what, let's throw it in with the other Ace Jack hands for Clayton, since he loves this hand now.
Well, now you just uttered a phrase that I'll bet in the early days when you first joined TPE, you probably never would have imagined yourself saying, a hand that I played against Negreanu.
Yeah. In fact, I'm glad you brought that up, because the reason this hand resurfaced is that Thinking Poker Podcast is we're working on our 400th episode.
Wow.
And so for the 400th episode, we're doing a special thing where we're having listeners listen to old episodes and submit timestamps of things that we've said in old episodes, so just favorite moments that were instrumental for them. And then we're going to grab the clips of those timestamps and do like a collage of like the best moments from the first 10 years of the Thinking Poker Podcast. And so I started working on that for myself, and I went back to my second episode as a guest. And in the episode, Nate and Andrew basically explained to me why if you have a condensed range and your opponent is putting a lot of pressure on you, if that person is aggressive, you cannot fold top pair. Now that might sound a little weird, but back in those days, in my mind, the people who couldn't fold top pair when a lot of chips were going in were the fish that were paying me off. And so when they told me, no, in certain situations, you're supposed to call with top pair in these spots. And that was like eye-opening for me. So I took that clip, I put it on Twitter, and then I combined it with the hand I played against Negreanu, which I guess is kind of a spoiler. But I had a top pair hand, and Negreanu put a lot of pressure on me, and I was able to find the call against one of the best players in the world. 8 years later, thanks to that conversation I had on my second episode of the Thinking Poker Podcast with Andrew and Nate.
It all comes full circle, doesn't it? That's amazing.
It really does. It really does.
Well, let's get into it. You want to do an ace jack just to keep up with the theme we've got going lately?
Yeah. Let's do at least the first two ace jack hands, and if we have time, we'll get into the one with Negreanu.
All right, it's ace jack day again.
Yes.
All right, well, talk us through it. Is this the free roll?
Yes. So this first ace jack hand is from the free roll. We're at the 75-150 level with antes. Mm-hmm. And I have ace jack from middle position. This is UTG2. And I open for min raise, 75 big blinds deep. I'm already chip leader. I guess second in chips at this table. So the run good had already started. But yeah. I got the majority of the table covered. But even at this stack depth, I'm still min raising personally.
You were like, who's that guy from Philadelphia that won the main event? Joe McKeon. You were Joe McKeon in this tournament. You just had all the chips from the beginning, didn't you?
It was crazy.
All right, so we open just a minimum raise off of a 75 big blind stack early on in the game, 75-150. It's one of the early levels.
We get a call on the cutoff from a player who has 48 bigs, and we get a call from the small blind from a player who has 85 bigs.
Okay.
Big blind folds, so we go three-handed to the flop.
Okay. And the flop is?
Jack 10 deuce rainbow. None of the suits matter. My hand is off suit, so Jack 10 deuce rainbow.
Okay, so it's Jack 10 deuce rainbow. We're not going to be dealing with a flush here. We've got top pair, top kicker, which is pretty normal for a guy that's running as hot as you were in this tournament. Just go ahead and flop top. And they check to you, I assume?
Yes.
All right. So, I mean, look, you have two opponents. You've got top pair. You want to protect your hand. You want to get some value from worse hands like worse jacks or maybe a pair of tens. Also, the many draws available like 9-8 or king-queen, right? Probably could be in either one of these guys' range. Maybe not the small blind. He might not have 9-8 in his range. Kind of depends on their overall playing styles. You have to bet. Well, you don't have to bet, but I think it's pretty standard to bet this flop, right?
Yeah, I like a bet here for sure.
Okay, so there's about 8 big blinds in there. What did you do?
I went pot here. Now, I know that is probably not theoretically correct, but one thing about a free roll is that people don't show up to fold. And I think I have the best hand the majority of the time on this board. And also stacks are relatively deep. So if I have any hope of stacking anyone here, I'm going to have to get some big bets in there. So I started off with a pot size bet.
Now this is pretty exploitable, right? Like you are not going to be making that bet with your bluffs as well, are you?
Not too many bluffs, like maybe king queen I would do it with because that one has so much equity that I honestly don't mind if I bet big and get caught with that hand. But if I have something like 9-8 or just like ace queen, something like that, then no, I'm not betting that big with that hand.
Right, which is why you said it's not theoretically correct to bet this much with a strong hand because you wouldn't balance that same bet with...
Yeah, especially multi-way.
Okay, so we bet the pot, and what happens?
So we get a call from the from the cutoff, and the small blind folds.
Okay. Now he's the one with the shorter stack, right? So what is his SPR after he calls then?
After he calls, it's a little bit less than 2. Before he called, it was like 9.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And so that's the beauty of the big bet is like you make that big bet and you get called and it really just dramatically reduces that SPR. And if you're up against an opponent who you think you can get a lot of chips in with one pair, that's a great thing.
Yeah, for sure. So when he makes that call, do you have thoughts on what his range should be? Like, are you worried that he called a pot-sized bet with another player yet to act behind him? Or do you just say, look, it's a free roll. This guy could have any number of hands?
Exactly. I more or less put him on that range you gave earlier. Ace Jack, Ace 10, I guess any Jack or most tens. And then also hands like 9-8 and King Queen.
Right. Okay. What happens on the turn?
given that range, we found a beautiful turn card, which is the Badugi Queen. So there's now Jack 10 deuce and then the Queen, all rainbow. And if you think to that range I mentioned, King Queen, 9-8, hands like Queen Jack, maybe Queen 10, like a lot of that range improved on this card.
Yeah.
So this is kind of an interesting card given the size of the bet I chose on the flop.
Yeah, so when you say that's a beautiful card, you're being sarcastic.
Exactly. In the same way I said Ace Jack was your new favorite hand.
Yeah, I hate this queen so much. I mean, I think I would stop betting. Did you?
I did not. But the reason I didn't is because I think this queen is so bad for my hand that my hand has drastically dropped down in value. But it's also a pretty good card for my range because I have ace king where this opponent doesn't.
That's true. You have the nuts advantage for sure.
Yeah, so not only that, I also have queens where he doesn't, and as well as hands like jacks and tens. So I didn't stop betting, but now I'm betting for a different reason. I'm basically turning this to a bluff.
Okay, so we're trying to get him to fold the bottom of his range, which I guess in this scenario is going to be something like ace 10.
Ace 10 is in there. Also, king 10 is in there, but that's not going anywhere. Mainly, like when I say I'm turning into a bluff, I'm kind of foreshadowing here that the hands I'm targeting, I don't expect them to fold for one bet. So my plan here is to bet turn and then jam river. Okay. And if I do that, then I can also target hands like king queen if they don't improve on the river, and maybe even ace queen if he didn't three bet that pre-flop. So there's a couple of top pair combos that if I put a lot of pressure on him here, he can fold those, as well as, like you said, those hands like ace 10. Now I know the next thing I'm about to say is kind of dangerous for a free roll, but if I happen to run into one of those German bots here, they might be able to find a fold on the river with a hand like jack 10 as well. Even though that's two pair, it's got to really be worried if I'm putting in all my chips on this run out.
Yeah, well, the Carlos who made his second appearance on the Thinking Poker podcast all those years ago would not have looked at this hand this way at all. I mean, it just really shows how much you have changed and how much the way you approach the game has changed. I'm not sure if I can agree with trying to push people off of their hands in a free roll. Like you said a minute ago, Carlos, like people don't really show up to free rolls to fold, and now you're talking about trying to get somebody to fold two pair. But I guess, once it really is like, well, if you're out, you can't rebuy into this. So maybe when you're really threatening somebody's tournament life, even if that life didn't cost him anything except for getting the password quickly, it might be there might be some value to it. So maybe like on the flop, you're not really expecting them to fold much. As long as they have some kind of value, they're probably going to call a lot. But maybe if you really start to threaten that stack, then you can change their mindset a little bit.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think only the better players will ever find a fold with a hand like jack 10. But I do think if the board runs out scary enough, I can get some players off of one pair sort of holdings for all the chips in a tournament, like you said, that they can't rebuy in.
Right. And of course, we know we're drawing live regardless, so I guess technically whatever you're about to do is going to be a semi-bluff, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. So how much did you put in? There's he's got about twice the pot left. There's about 24 big blinds in there. What did you do?
This is where I make what I think is my first legit mistake, which is I bet half pot. And I don't think that's necessary. I actually ran this hand through a solver. I had to make some adjustments because the solver I use, GTO Wizard, can't do three-way hands. So I just had to pretend like the small blind was in there. But when I ran this hand heads up through GTO Wizard, it likes a smaller bet occasionally on this turn. It mostly checks, and I think that's probably what you would do here. So you are right that that's the thing that happens the vast majority of the time, but somewhere around 15 to 20% of the time, it will go like third pot here. and instead I went half pot. So I think that's a mistake on my part.
Yeah, I think smaller for a lot of reasons. But yeah, even if you're trying to set up, the big shove on the end, you don't need to bet half the pot to get a pot-sized bet on the river.
Exactly. So that was definitely a clear mistake I made here.
Okay. So, and also, by the way, I would check this card even if I had Ace King. I just think this is a good card to check, having bet the flop. And if I'm gonna, you got to protect your checking range too, right? So if I check,
exactly.
You need to check with the nuts too. So now you're gonna bet half the pot, and you got called.
Yep, I bet half pot. My opponent calls, and because I bet too big on the turn, we get to the river with about just over a half pot size bet left. And the river was a 6, which doesn't change anything from the turn.
Right, so Jack 10 deuce, Queen 6, hero with the Ace Jack, so second pair on a pretty scary run out.
Yes. So this is where I decide to complete the plan, and this is where I also have to do a better job of picking my target, because I think you're right that the average opponent in a free roll probably isn't going to give me the folds I want. But if you just put yourself in this opponent's shoes, I imagine this would be pretty scary with a one pair hand.
Yeah, for sure. Even if I had a queen, I don't love it. Carlos is looking like he's got Ace King.
Yeah, or queens, or jacks, or tens.
Yeah, something he's willing to put me all in on. And I remember the old Carlos. I haven't caught up to where you're at in poker yet, so I would say, man, this guy's got the nuts 100%.
Yeah, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll put myself in my opponent's shoes, and if I would get squeamish there, then I would go for the bluff. But
yeah.
I have to do a better job of making sure I'm projecting onto someone that's closer to my skill level and honestly my nittiness, because even in the free roll, I probably would have folded facing this action.
All right, so we shove, and it sounds like you got called. What did you get called by?
We shove, and somehow I get snap called by Ace 10. Yeah, so I'm turning my hand into a bluff, which clearly turns out to be a horrible mistake if my opponent can snap call with worse.
and so you got the value bluff through.
I got the value bluff through, and I guess this is like what free roll life is like, I guess.
Yeah, welcome to it. So yeah, I don't think that most of us would call there with Ace 10, and you're saying snap called on top of that. But yeah, that's what you got to remember when you're playing in a free roll. Generally speaking, people don't show up to fold. I don't know what kind of hand he thinks you're about to turn over that Ace 10 is beating. I guess King 10, you could sometimes, if you play Ace Jack this way, would you also play King 10 this way?
Yes. I think this board is so good for my range that I can go pretty crazy on it. And honestly, King 10 is one that the solver really likes. Ace Jack, it doesn't really like turning a hand into a bluff on the river. But it likes it with 10x combos and weaker Jack X combos. So if I had something like Jack 9 suited, that's a hand that would take this line.
Right. So the solver always cares about the blockers, right? So having King 10, you block the nuts, and you also block a set of 10s, right? So I could see that. 9-10 blocks a straight. So yeah, that makes sense.
The blockers, and then also just needing to get the opponent off of a weaker target. So like King 10 can fold out hands like Ace 10 or Jack 9, where Ace Jack doesn't benefit from making those hands fold. So in order for Ace Jack to be turned into a bluff, you really got to get this guy to fold a queen. Otherwise, what's the point?
Right. And you had a bad read on him, but that really paid off for you.
Yeah. And the beauty of it is, I don't know if we want to do this, but because this is ACR, their screen names, and I don't know if you can see this guy's screen, it makes it so much better that this didn't work, because his screen name is 0 luck, 100% skill. That's his screen name, but he finds the call here with third pair.
It's all skill, baby. All skill.
Yes.
Well, that was a fun one. All right, we're going to do one more Ace Jack?
Yes, and this next one is a quick one. So if actually both of the other ones are quick, so maybe we can get through both of them quickly.
Okay,
so I'll
let's
go ahead
do
and
it.
pull up the second one.
Right.
The second one is from the final table of the Freeroll event.
Okay.
So at this point, we're down to 5 players left, and I am 4 of 5. So towards the bottom here, I have 21 big blinds, and the short stack has 13, and the chip leader has 57.
Okay, so we got our work cut out for us.
Yes. So I am in the hijack. I open for a min raise.
Right, now guys,
And-
keep in mind a hijack at a 5-handed table is under the gun.
Yes. And this time the cutoff calls me from a 26 big blind stack, which right away should be a little bit scary given that the chip leader is in the small blind behind him, and there's a guy with 13 bigs who's in the big blind. So with the ICM pressure here, we all should be very snug in this spot.
Right, and did you have the sense while you were playing this final table, Carlos, did you have the sense that players were considering the pay jumps? Because they are pretty substantial. I mean, look, you bought in for 0, right? So anything is something, but first place is $201 real dollars. So did you feel like that was affecting people's decisions?
Yeah, maybe not for the monetary value of the pay jumps, but just like, you know, you've made it to a final table. You want to play your best regardless of what the payout is. Like, I personally kind of started taking the tournament a lot more serious as we got closer to the final table, especially when it's like, it's the Tournament Poker Edge free roll, and when it starts, there's 300 people. Derek's playing, he's focusing on his own table, but by the time you get down to like the last 2 or 3 tables, like all the lights are on you. And so, like, yeah, Derek's in the chat, he's trying to put bets on me to say, oh, Carlos is short stack here, but I'll take 5-1 that he's going to come back and win this thing. So there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure. So I'm taking it serious. And based on the way these people were playing, they were taking it serious as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, TPE Nation was rooting for Carlos. Even your opponents at this table were kind of rooting for you.
Yeah, it was a fun spot to be in, man. I could feel the love for sure.
Yeah. All right, so we're under the gun, a.k.a. the hijack. Any reason to make it anything other than a min raise here?
I don't think so, just because my stack is so short that I can't really afford to lose like an extra half a big blind or whatever. Especially with the ICM pressure on me, if I get 3-bet, I can't do much about it. Like, honestly, I would probably just fold this hand to a 3-bet because you got to think, I have 21 bigs, but there's a guy on my right with 13. So as long as I have him covered, I'm in okay shape to continue laddering. So I got to be pretty careful here with my chips. So I can't put in extra if I don't need to.
Yeah, and that call on your immediate left is very disconcerting.
Yes.
Yeah, for all the reasons you already gave. He's got players yet to act behind him. There's a short stack in the big blind, etc. So, yeah, that's it shows a lot of strength if he knows what he's doing.
Exactly. So he calls the button and the big stack in the small blind both fold, and the short stack in the big blind calls.
Okay.
So we go 3-handed to the flop, and we see a board of ace, queen, 3. I mean, because it's me, I flop top pair. So we kind of knew we were going to get a good board, right?
Of course, obviously. So we have 2 opponents. One of them is the short stack in the big blind, and I'm assuming he checks to us.
Yes. At this point, he has just under, he's got 12.5 bigs behind. There's 7 in the middle, so the SPR is just under 2.
Right.
And he checks to me. And should I go ahead and say what I did, or pause?
Yeah, I mean, we could talk. I mean, I'm still a little worried about the guy on our left, but I still would bet this. I think I would go pretty small here, maybe just like, I don't know, like 2 big blinds.
Yeah, I think you and I are thinking along the same lines. I actually go 1.5 big blinds right here. And I really like this size because now that people are taking it more serious, I'm trying to play more theoretically correct. And in multi-way pots, you do tend to use smaller sizings. especially on boards like this that are not that dynamic, and also when the SPR is so low, you don't need the big bet. And also ICM kind of pushes the bet sizes down a bit as well. So I actually went, like normally I would go around quarter to third pot here. This time I went even less than quarter pot.
Yeah, just 1.5. All right. And then what happens?
So I bet, and the player who called in the small blind jams.
Wait,
I said small blind, I meant cutoff.
Right, okay. So the guy we were worried about, right, okay. Yeah, so when he shoves and then the short stack folds, it's like, hey, Carlos, do you want to go out in fifth place or what?
Exactly.
Oh, exactly. Man, this is pressure. I mean, obviously you can flip the script on people, and he can make this move knowing that you can't really call the shove without at least 2 pair, right? So, I mean, we have to worry that we're getting outplayed here, but that's pretty high-level thinking for a free roll. I would assume that he's probably got us beat. I mean, I know the solver probably says you have to call with ace-jack, but I'm playing. I'm going to fold. I mean, I've been worried about this guy since the first flat, so I think he's usually going to show up with ace-queen here or better.
Yeah. Also, he's running 15-8 over 29 hands, which is not a big sample size, but for a free roll, that's pretty tight.
Yeah.
And we're at a final table, and there's that short stack there. And whenever I think about a spot like this, I ask myself, before I just make a snap decision, I ask myself a simple question, like, what is he doing this with? Like, what value hand is he doing with this that I beat? And if he's bluffing, like, what hand would he be bluffing with here?
Yeah, it's really hard to find many bluffs on this board that would shove like this. I mean, it's ace, queen, tray, rainbow. He doesn't have a straight draw unless it's a gut shot. And, like, is he really going to risk everything on a gut shot? I mean, maybe. It's a free roll, and maybe he folded all these hands all the way to get his VPIP down to 15 so that he can just go crazy against you, 5-handed. It seems unlikely. Like, I feel like the worst hand he's likely to have is ace-queen.
Yeah, or like a slow played ace-king or something. Whatever it is, I don't think I'm in good shape against it. What I always say here, like in a spot that feels close to me, I tanked on this one a bit, but I did find the fold. And in this spot, in order to call, we need to be good 39% of the time. Just to make myself feel better, I'll say this guy's probably bluffing 35% of the time, but that's not often enough, so he doesn't get my money.
Yeah, and I doubt he's even bluffing that often. Like I say, it's so hard to even find a bluff. It's not like we've got enough chips to come up with some elaborate multi-street bluff. The bluff is a shove. It's like you just don't see guys bluff shoving with 4-5 or king-jack here. And we blocked that one anyway, right? It would have to be king-10. I don't know if he would even play ace-king this way, Carlos. He's got to be worried that you have ace-queen, right? If he's that tight, he's 15-8. He's got a monster. He's got pocket queens, maybe pocket threes, ace-queen, and I think that's about it. Even in a free roll, I think we can find the fold button here, and I'm glad you did.
Yeah, I think you're right there that at best this guy's probably bluffing like 5% of the time. But when I know I'm going to fold, just to stop the curiosity from killing the cat, I tell myself, like, yeah, he's bluffing there a lot, but just not enough. You can let that go and move on to the next hand. Just as a mental way to trick myself out of being tilted from having to fold this. Yeah, but in reality, the guy's bluffing like 5% of the time there, if that. If
that, yeah. But you know what? Whatever helps you sleep at night, buddy.
Exactly. Now, this was a fold that I think a lot of people wouldn't make. And when I made this, I got to the point where I was roughly tied shortest stack with 5 left. And this is kind of like a cautionary tale, or like a tale of hope for people here, that you can make this fold, become short, and still come back and win the thing. So it's not like you give up your chance to win the tournament if you find these folds. In fact, you increase your chance of winning the tournament by being able to find these folds.
Yeah, that's very well said. You increase, you might say, I don't want to give up on this tournament. If I fold here, I'm going to have such a short stack. I was already kind of short to begin with, 4 out of 5, right? But look, if you call and lose, you have no more chance, right?
Yeah.
That's zero. So whatever your chances are now, they're not zero. As we've seen, you actually won the damn thing. So there you go. All right, let's do the Negreanu because that was quick. Let's do the Negreanu real fast.
Okay, the Negreanu hand is going to be quick also. So this is from some circuit event. It was like a 1K buy-in. And this honestly might have been a bracelet event because it was definitely during the summer. And in this hand, I am on the button. It folds around to me on the button with ace-jack offsuit. And he is in the big blind. He has just under 50 bigs, so like 45 bigs, and I have him covered on the button. So I raise from the button with ace-jack offsuit. Because Negreanu is in the big blind, I actually don't min raise here. I go a little bit bigger. I went like 2.3.
And the idea there is that you might be able to get some more folds against a player that you really don't want to tangle with.
Yeah, it's like against most players, they're going to call you with pretty much the same range, whether you go min raise or 2.3. Better players will make a distinction. Like there's some edge case hands that they will fold versus that slightly bigger to 3-bet, where most people that I play against on a normal basis don't make a distinction there.
Right. Okay, I like it. Size up a little bit against a tough opponent.
Exactly. Also, small blind in this hand is Jeff Matson, who has a mountain of chips.
Oh.
So with two high-level players behind me, I need to be trying to like decrease this post-flop SPR with a bigger raise size.
I like the logic there. I like all the decisions. So if you make it 2.3, we're going to set up like SPR of around a little over 2, if my math is correct.
No, we're way deeper than that. So like 2.3, if he calls, there's gonna be like maybe 2K in the middle, and he has like 13K, so it's gonna be closer to like 5 or 6.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, that's if I raise and he calls, but that's not what happened. What happened is he 3-bet me.
Oh boy.
And see, maybe that is what confused you, because when he 3-bet me and I called, then yeah, now we're talking about a lower SPR.
Oh, that's the screenshot I'm looking at here. Okay, so he set up that SPR with his 3-bet. Now, did you consider shoving pre-flop when he 3-bet you?
To be honest, in game, I did not consider shoving, but in hindsight, that is the right play. I got confirmation on that from another old school TPE, I'll say associate, because he was never a TPE pro, but Chirp Herm. Oh, he had the podcast. The Chirp Herm
yeah,
podcast
for sure.
TPE.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Mark Herm confirmed to me that this is a spot where I should be jamming the majority of the time. But I think if you look it up in the solver, it probably mixes between calls and jams.
Yeah, I mean, I just know that Negreanu, from what I've observed, and I'm not an expert on his play, but I've watched a good amount of him over the many years, I think that he's more aggressive from out of the big blind than a lot of players are. I think his big blind 3-betting frequency seems to be on the high side. And just, in that dynamic between the button versus the big blind, I feel like ace-jack is a very strong hand for this situation. And even if you shove and get called, you're usually going to have, decent equity against his 3-bet calling range. So, yeah, I think I would just, get it in pre-flop on this one.
Yeah, and you really don't want to be taking too many offsuit hands post-flop against a better player. So maybe the solution here is to jam this one and maybe call with ace-jack suited.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
But in this case, I decided to call because I didn't know any better at the time. And we got a flop of, guess what? Ace, Queen, 8 rainbow. So I'm pretty good at flopping top pair, at least.
Okay, so...
So here, SPR is just below 2, or roughly 2 SPR.
Right.
And he goes for a bet size that's like just above 20% of the pot. So like this is like 22%, somewhere in that ballpark.
Okay. Yeah, I want to get all in. I mean, I know it might sound wild to people, because Negreanu's showing a good amount of strength here, but it's just, Ace Jack is usually going to be good on this board, right? I don't know. I wouldn't think too much more deeply than that. Now that the stacks have gotten so short compared to the pot, you've got a world-class player betting into you who is capable of very, very much. You've got top pair and a strong kicker in a blind versus button situation. I wanted to get it all in pre, but now that I flopped an ace, I really want to get it in. Let's go.
See, now I feel like that could be a mistake in theory land. And I do think we need to be approaching this from a theoretical perspective because we're playing against a much better player. And the reason I say that you shouldn't have, I'll put it this way. You shouldn't have a lot of jams on this flop. And I don't know if you split your range, if this hand would fit into the jamming range or not, but he has a massive range advantage on this board because I'm not going to have queens or ace king or honestly even ace queen, maybe not even eights, like maybe all those hands jam pre. And so he has all the monsters here and I don't have any.
I disagree. I think you have eights because look, you flatted with ace jack, you would have flatted with eights, I believe.
Maybe. But even then, I don't know if that's enough of I don't know if that's enough to protect my range here because overall my range is going to be fairly weak in this spot. So I do think I need to be careful. Like I don't know if I could raise all my top pairs. Maybe the solution here is that this one's good enough to raise, and like maybe if I have like ace five suited that I call a 3-bet with, that helps to protect the checking range. Maybe that's what it is. But I do know that he has the range advantage and the nut advantage here, and when that's the case, you generally have to let them drive the action.
Right, which is the dynamic that you were talking about before, the polarized versus the condensed range.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's exactly how we started this convo. So yeah, I mean, I'll give you that, from a theoretical side, but I want to get it in here with, okay, sometimes he's going to have ace queen. Like you say, he'll have queens, he'll have eights, he'll even have aces every so often when I'm really unlucky. But I think that a lot of his 3-betting range is like probably any suited ace. I just feel like from what I've seen of him, what I know about his playing style is that he's going to have a lot of hands and might even be willing to call. Like, what if you have him pipped? He should have ace 10, ace 9. It might be hard for him to fold.
I agree with that. I do agree that the hand is good enough to jam for value. But I think we have to be a little bit concerned about the weaker hands in this that we have in our calling range.
Got it.
If we raise with all the good stuff, then that part of the range is super vulnerable on turns and rivers.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Carlos. All right, so what did we do?
So I started with a call here for a very small bet there. And then on the turn, we see a 4, so that puts a flush draw on the board now. The flop was rainbow, but now the 4 diamonds comes on the turn. I don't have a diamond for whatever that's worth. And now there's around 7,700 in the middle. He has like 10K left in his stack. And he jams the turn.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Over bet.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's part of why I wanted to take control of this pot myself at some point. And I know that that's theoretically incorrect. Like, you shouldn't just be aggressive so that somebody else isn't, right? That's not good theory at all. But just because I don't want to get outplayed here. I don't know what the solver wants to do. You got to be right a lot, right? Because he's over betting, so you have to be right a lot of the time. This is tough. Yeah. I still want to call, but I don't blame you if you folded.
Yeah, this was the sort of spot that if you listen to that clip that I got from my second episode on Thinking Poker podcast, Andrew was explaining the spot to me and explaining to me why it's a call. And I think my exact words were, I would never call it in this sort of spot with ace jack or ace 10. And so I kind of knew back then that, the people I play against, I'm 3-betting with like aces or kings in this spot, and then I jam here, and they call me with ace 10, and I'm like fist pumping because I'm thinking like, how they couldn't get away from it. So I don't want to like be one of those people when the roles are reversed. But the difference is when you're playing against, your average opponent who isn't aggressive enough from the big blind, you can fold here because their most likely hand is going to be something like ace king, ace queen, or aces or whatever. But Negreanu is not like those people. You correctly pointed out that his 3-betting range here is so much more either balanced or possibly even weighted towards bluffs that you can't just let go of one pair of hands against a player like him in the same way you can against more passive opponents.
Yeah, I don't give his big blind 3-bet, especially when you're on the button, opening on the button. He likes, he's old school in some ways. He likes to fight fire with fire. So he's not afraid to have like a little pre-flop raising war with you. So that's why I really think the best way to play this hand versus this particular opponent that I definitely don't have completely figured out, obviously. But I do think that I would just shove pre and let the chips fall where they may. But yeah, I mean, as played, I don't think we can fold. I mean, I hate it. I hate it so much because I have to be right a lot, but I will. I will be right a lot. Yeah. So just call and pray that you're good.
Yeah. 2013, Carlos, from that episode, would not have made that call, but the conversation from the episode prepared me for this spot. And I did make the call, and he shows me King 8 suited.
Oh, yeah, so we're well ahead. He's got 5 outs. All right.
He has bottom pair. But I'm Carlos, and he's Negreanu, so you know what the river card needs to be.
Oh, no, the king showed up.
So he hits the king on the river, and I end up losing the chips, but I don't lose any sleep.
Yeah, no, I like the way you said that. Yeah, you can lose the chips, but don't lose any sleep after you outplayed, such a great player. You made the right decision. You remembered what Andrew told you about, why you can't be folding top pair, especially against world-class talent. But yeah, I mean, obviously that's where the luck kind of gets you sometimes in poker. But yeah, really, really good call. And not an easy one at all.
Yeah, is it ever easy with Ace Jack? Really?
I know Ace Jack's been killing me lately. All the hands I've been discussing, it just so happens. Ace Jack. I promise all the listeners that are still with us, next week I will talk about a hand that is not Ace Jack. I promise you that. All right, Carlos, earlier on, by the way, thank you so much for doing this. Earlier on you mentioned Thinking Poker Daily. What is that? And just tell people about that a little bit, because maybe some of our listeners don't know.
Yeah, so Thinking Poker Daily is a Patreon-based podcast that Andrew and I do, where we do a 10 to 15 minutes, sometimes it's 20 minutes, but so I guess I should start saying 10 to 20 minute podcast episode every day with nothing but strategy. So if you listen to the Thinking Poker podcast and your favorite part about the show is the strategy segments, you can get strategy 5 days a week from us. And so we have that at patreon.com/thinkpokerdaily, and we have a $5 subscription level where you get 3 episodes a week. $15 gets you all 5 episodes a week, and for $50 we have all those episodes as well as a monthly video Zoom call with a group of other $50 subscribers, where we basically, Andrew and I, just talk hands with the guys, and it's basically like a small group coaching session. Any problems you have in terms of like questions or any poker concerns that you have, just save it and save it for the group there. And so yeah, we do that once a month, but the other 2 levels gets you the strategy episodes multiple times a week.
Wow. Well, that's great. Obviously it sounds like a great value. You know what you're talking about. You know how to play poker. You've got the credentials to show for it. And I'm just, talking with you today, like the way your game has gotten so sharp and the way that you approach spots. The first Carlos, the young man that I met all those years ago, just to see how much you have evolved as a player. And now at this point, I don't want to see you at my table. And then obviously Andrew, just a true poker genius. His books are amazing. 400 episodes of Thinking Poker podcast. There's a Thinking Poker blog, and the videos that he has made over the years for Tournament Poker Edge are some of the best on the site. So for very little money, it sounds like you can have access to two really great poker minds who are also, I think, very entertaining and fun to listen to. So that's a good value for sure. Nitcast approved.
Yes.
So, Carlos, what do you want to say before we say goodnight?
Before we say goodnight, I want to say thank you to you, Clayton, and everyone else and the TPE Nation for everything you guys did for me at the beginning of my career. I will always be grateful, and be on the lookout for this video series that I'm going to work on reviewing this TPE Freeroll that I was able to win. And yeah, hopefully you'll see that coming soon.
Now, is it fair to say of all your poker accomplishments, the bracelet, the ring, this Freeroll is probably at the top of your list?
I gotta say this. When I was playing this Freeroll, I was also playing an online circuit main event, and I didn't cash the main event. Obviously, that one would have been better to win. But honestly, it's better to win the TPE Freeroll than to min cash that circuit event. It would have been more money. I would have got a hidden mob entry for it, which I don't get for this. But just the love is like better than that min cash. Can't say it would have been better than a 40K first place score, but the 1K min cash, it was not as nice as this $200 win.
Well, we do love you. I speak for TPE Nation when I say we love you. You are one of our biggest success stories. As Derek Tenbush, Killingbird, would say, a true stone cold legend of the game. That's his favorite phrase. I always pick him because he overuses that one. All right. What's the Twitter, Carlos?
So my Twitter is hiphop101 trivia.
All right, and I know I follow you on Twitter at hiphop101 trivia. Carlos, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today.
Thank you, Clayton. This has been great.
All right, well, for Carlos Welch, the true stone cold legend of the game, and with special thanks, as always, to our very generous sponsor, Americas Cardroom, and for everyone here at Tournament Poker Edge, I'm Clayton Fletcher. Thank you so much for listening.
I wanna hold them like they do in Texas, please. Fold them, let them hit me, raise it, baby, stay with me. Luck and intuition, play the cards with babes to start. And after she's been hooked, I'll play the one that's on her heart. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Hold the face, she's got to love nobody. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Hold the face, she's got to love nobody. Poker face, poker face. Poker face, poker face. I wanna roll with her, a hard pair we will be. While little gambling is fun when you're with me. Russian roulette is not the same without a gun. And baby, when it's love, it's not rough, it